We're at Jones Park East in Emporia, Kansas, end of March here in 2018. So, hole 1, 355, famous for that little barn on the side there. When you're driving down 35, you can see it. Walking up to this hole, playing the course blind. Well, not blind, but for the first time. Throwing a turnover, that's a wave here. Understable driver. The backhand's a lot trickier than it looks. I should not have gotten as far as I did. I missed my line. It just happened to miss the trees. It's definitely a forehand hole. So, when you come out here, if you've got the forehand, trust me, play it. It's way easier. Hole 2 is 300 feet, super easy, wide open hyzer. I mean, this is an all day you'll get this. I'm throwing a resistor, almost no glide, nice and high speed, stable, low speed stable, a really reliable disc. Put it about where I wanted, should have a nice tap in, but I miss it. Again, that's probably the easiest hole in the course. Hole 3, 525. In hindsight, I would have thrown the hyzer. I don't know why. I was so used to seeing the pros throw it that I thought I would just try and go above that barn, but I put way too much angle on it, so it didn't get the full flight. It's not a bad shot. I was throwing a photon there. I kind of like a destroyer, but then an NV upshot. It's really not a difficult hole as long as you get far enough off the tee from what I can tell. So the main thing is just don't try to get heroic and turn and burn something. This hole's different than what the sign indicated, so I don't know. I want to say it is at like 300 feet or so. It's just a little turnover. I'm throwing a signal, which is a lot like a leopard. So if you're used to throwing that sort of a disc, super easy turnover shot. And hole 5 did not have a T sign. So this is the 477 hole with the mode area being inbounds, everything else being OB. Honestly, I was trying to go for it because I didn't realize how far it was. I forgot what hole I was on based on my memory. But I hit the landing zone by accident because I hit the tree on the right, and then I just threw a tensor for an upshot in for an easy 3. So if I were to play it again, I would definitely just go like mid-range, putter, and in. Hole 6 is definitely a low ceiling. And because the slope of the hill plays slightly up, I mean, it's kind of just a good vertical challenge. It's not far. It's 325. It probably plays 325. I threw mine too low, and then I had to really, go for this 50, 60-foot jumper or whatever that is. It's not a hard hole, but it's definitely not easy. And when it's windy, like it probably always is in Kansas, it's going to give you a challenge. Hole 7 here at 555. I way underestimated this tee shot. So, I mean, I threw it decent, but I should have thrown it probably another 50 feet because I put myself up against these trees and too short. So I'm trying to hit this little tunnel, which was super tight. Didn't work, so anyway. My third shot here was wide open. That was easy. That was a nice tensor. But, honestly, you've got to throw it really pretty far. You want to get around and deep and high by that flagpole so you can just go hyzer. It's for sure the right play. So learn from me if you're going to play this blind. Hole 8, 370, dead straight. I'm throwing a crave here. Might have been too much disc, but I threw it pretty easily on a good hyzer, and it just flipped up and skipped there in the wind. I mean, if it wasn't windy, you could easily get a mid there. It probably only plays 340 or something like that, but very easy hole, straightforward. Hole 9 is super challenging. Interesting. I'd love to play this course and this hole a bunch more times, but 726. I threw a mayhem here. I actually missed my line. I was trying to go slightly right of that tree. Thankfully, I missed it altogether and still had a really good shot. But the second shot here, in hindsight, I should have thrown a thumber or a forehand, but I'm throwing a resistor on a backhand, and it just got a little too much lift. So it went from inbounds to out of bounds. Thankfully, I still had a putt, but there's obviously a penalty stroke there. That was a huge putt. I really expected I was going to take a 5 on that with the penalty, but really difficult hole. I would imagine that I would be thrilled with a 4 on that any day. Hole 10's really very straightforward, 340 through this gap. There's a pretty good headwind on it, so I was throwing a Defy, which is a pretty overstable, like speed 10, speed 11 sort of driver, but I put too much hyzer on it, so it did not go straight through the gap and was short. And, and the name of this one is just get it close to give yourself a putt, but obviously you need to execute to do that. Hole 11 is really fun. Billy Engel aced this hole. I think maybe this is first Sports Center mention for disc golf that I remember seeing. It does not play 395. I would say that, again, without the wind, you could definitely get a mid-range there, but I think it's perfect for a fairway driver, just the way it shapes up, is to throw something you're confident in throwing straight. I imagine if a throwers throw a T-bird or something like that, but great hole. Hole 12 is a lot of fun. I think it's probably the most memorable one, 320. I gave myself a mulligan on this one because my first throw, there were kids running around, there were geese and stuff like that, and I decided I deserved a second chance. But anyway, that was a resistor again. I mean, that just can sort of do no wrong for me right now. That basket is way more elevated than you think. When I looked at that, I was really close. That was like a 20-foot putt, and I felt like I was really earning it. So 13. The sign says 325. When I went back and watched the dynamic coverage, it's actually 425. So I was confused, and I threw it harder than 325 because I thought the basket looked further, but I was confused how I was still like 55 feet short. And so in the future, I would throw it a little bit harder to get there. But first hole, that feels open enough for you to really just pump out a good drive on. Hole 14 this was uphill in that 390-foot position. Another one, you probably have the same power on 13 and 14. I overturned my photon on the sun a little bit, so it didn't get the full flight. But again, I mean, once you're past 50 feet off the tee, there's really nothing in your way. So as long as you don't drastically miss, you should really have no problems getting threes, and you should almost always have a putt at 2. Hole 15, this is in the 305. Again, with the wind, I went back to the resistor, mainly because it can't glide, and this is one of those weird distances where, a putter or a mid could glide out really too far, so I knew that resistor would not glide as long as I didn't throw it too hard. And then we're going to hole 16, downhill 375. Here, I should have chosen something with glide, but I went back to the resistor again, and again, it was a great looking throw as a line I wanted. It just didn't stay in the air long enough. So I think next time I'll probably throw an overstable amp or something. But I think that a stable mid would get there. You just need it to stay in the air for a while. But the headwind was kind of, and right to left was a little problematic on that for distance. Hole 17, 405. Now here, I really wanted this one. So that's Fission Photon. It's 165 grams. So I really tagged this one. It does not play 400 feet. And I threw it further than 400 feet anyway. So, lesson learned there. I think you can get a fairway there. And I'm sure that big arms can get a mid there too. Great hole. That's a lot of fun. And hole 18. Thankfully, this is in the 340. The 530 would be a hard 3. There's a good headwind, so I'm throwing a shock. Sort of like a Thunderbird, for those who are familiar with that disc. I turned it over too much, hit some branches, but thankfully I got a good kick out, and it put me back in the fairway. So, Jones Park East, a lot of fun. I loved Jones West as well. If you're in the area, must-see courses. Of course, they're iconic, but they're also just a lot of fun to watch and play. So, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you on the next video.